Welcome everyone to another episode of Tales of the LGBTQ+. My name is Douglas Parsons. Today's guest is actor, playwright, director, producer extraordinaire, Trevor Schmidt. I have been a fan of Trevor's work for many years, and so I was thrilled to be able to sit down to have a conversation with him when it comes to this podcast. Now I say conversation singular, but I need you to know that we're going to be referencing other conversations that we had previously during this interview that you hear today. Now, this is the third conversation Trevor and I attempted for this podcast. The other two were full-length question and answer periods as well, but they're somewhere out there in the cloud, never to return. So by the third time, Trevor and I, we knew each other quite well. And very much like his plays and his writing with all of his works, there seems to be a sucker punch. Well, a sucker punch happens here today as well. During this first interview, the one that you'll never get to listen to, I immediately began it by telling Trevor that I found him intimidating. He heard these words and immediately began to talk about himself, that he's hard to be approached. And he thought maybe that's due to his looks or people confusing him with the characters that he plays on the stage. That's not what I meant at all. When I say intimidating, I meant intimidation with his immense talent. People here in Edmonton, they know Trevor Schmidt. But if you are listening to this podcast and you're hearing about Trevor for the first time, let me give you a rundown. Trevor Schmidt has been the artistic director of the Northern Light Theatre for almost 20 years, and he's been involved with the theatre, this particular theatre, for almost 30. As I mentioned, performer, director, producer, playwright, designer, and he's won multiple Sterling Awards for his work. 3 times as a playwright, The Watermelon Girls, Change Room, and personal favorite, Flora and Fauna's Field Trip. He's won twice for directing. He has received the Outstanding Fringe Performance Award for his one-man show that was written by Nick Green, the incredible Coffee Dad, Chicken Mom, and the Fabulous Buddha Boy. This play hit me like a gut punch, and I spent time afterwards just crying away, the emotions leaving me. You may know him most from his work with Darren with Guys with Disguise. His work just transcends everything, and he's intimidating. I know I spend most of my time wondering what ifs. Trevor, on the other hand, creates. And it's this outpouring of creation that thrills me, and I get to be a fan at all times. Now, we taped this a couple weeks ago, and at that time, Trevor did not know exactly when he was going to be able to release a filmed version of a play that he is working on with his Northern Light Theatre. Great news for us, though. We're going to be releasing this today, which is a Thursday, and I'm very happy to say that his upcoming works are available right now for purchase. The plays themselves, Something Unspoken, a Tennessee Williams play, followed by The Ugly Duchess. We're going to leave you a link to where you're able to purchase these tickets, and then you'll be able to view from the privacy of your own home. It's not live theater. Live theater's coming back soon. Make sure you get your injection. And then that way, then we can come together and really love theater like we always have. As I mentioned, the sucker punch. Guys in Disguise is well known for this play that you're enjoying, you're loving, you're hearing the great stories, and then 3/4 of the way through, a sucker punch takes place. And then everything changes a little bit, and then you have to adjust and shift. Today's interview has that as well, I believe. An unintentional, that's for sure. Trevor Schmidt, I may find you intimidating, but good Lord, do I love you as a person. Today, on Tales of the LGBTQ+, please stick around and listen to this great conversation that I have with Trevor Schmidt. That's today on Tales of the LGBTQ+, and that conversation starts right now. Hey Trevor, how's it going?
It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. To give some background for everyone, Trevor and I got together a week ago to record, and somehow it did not record the way we wanted it to. So we come back together today to record again. We started that recording and it just stopped. So this is Act One. Yeah, this is Act 1, Scene 1 for all of you, but Trevor and I are already on Scene 3. So it's time for all of you to catch up with us because we've had a great conversation so far.
Yeah, like I wonder if the universe is saying like maybe we're not supposed to be doing this, or like maybe I need to, like, you're going to be so tired of hearing whatever stories I tell you because it's like, yeah, I've heard that one before.
Never, never, ever, ever. So let's get started on Act 3, Version 3 of this. With our conversation, I really want to get to know Trevor Schmidt. I've been a longtime fan of yours as an actor, as you being a director, a producer, and from myself on the outside looking in, I understand a part of who you are, that professional self, but I also realize that I don't know the actor behind those words or behind those scene changes. And it's been wonderful with our challenges that we've had recording to get to know you more. And I'm excited now to be able to have a further conversation to express who you are and for everyone to get to know you even more. So
well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to get to know you as well. So, and I'm glad I appreciate all your support.
Well, in the support is a long time coming, or it's been there for a long time, I should say. With your acting career, you are not Edmonton born and raised. You've come to Edmonton, I believe, in the early 1990s. What about Edmonton brought you here, and what has caused you to stay to create your name?
In the late 80s and the early 90s, Edmonton was sort of the theater town in Canada. It had this really great national reputation for exemplary work, mostly hosted out or based out of the reputation of the drama department at the U of A. That BFA program was touted as sort of one of the greatest in our country. And that was where people gravitated when they wanted to have a career afterwards. There was a lot of guest directors being brought into that program. So people graduating from it were sort of, it was fairly elite at the time. And that was bolstered by the work that was being done here in Edmonton. So I came to Edmonton on a tour of a musical that had been in a couple of different cities across the country when this was still when Stage West was happening. So I came in with a musical from Toronto, and I met some really wonderful people in the cast here. And they said, Marilyn Ryan, who's a big name here in town, said, you should stay here. You'll get work. And so I made the decision sort of spur of the moment that I would stay here. And I think I was sort of won over by Fringe that year. I got to go to Fringe for the first time, and it was very exciting. And there was a large, very welcoming community. And I stayed because I thought I would get work, and I didn't get work for 6 months. I lost my apartment, my car got totaled, lots of bad things happened. And I thought, oh, geez, what have I done? But, you know, I kept plugging away, and eventually I got my first professional role in town here. My first real gig in town here was with Northern Light Theater, where I'm now the artistic director. So that was sort of one of the first real contact with the community. And I was very fortunate to be nominated for a Sterling for my work. So suddenly everyone in the community, I was on the radar, and that was very beneficial for really embedding myself within the community.
When did you start creating your own characters and being a playwright and putting yourself out there as the writer in addition to being the performer?
I think the first show that I actually wrote that was produced anywhere was at the second year of One Yellow Rabbit's High Performance Rodeo. I wrote a show there with a couple of friends of mine in mind, and we presented it. So that was very exciting to be included as part of that festival. And that was the first time that I actually wrote sort of a full-length show that got produced. And I think what really drove me to become a playwright and work more in playwriting was that here in town, I worked with a few actresses, women in town, who said, we are sick of not getting a lot of work. It's all men, it's all men, it's all men. And I felt for them. And so I ended up working with a group of women. We formed a small collective here in town. And I wrote plays for them. And I think that's what really cemented my work as a playwright. And at a certain point in my career, I was very worried that I wouldn't work very much longer. I was very, very young looking. So I would go out for roles. I remember I went out for a role when I was about 28 or 29, and I had driven up. I was doing a show in Calgary playing a 14-year-old, and I'd driven up to audition for something, and they said, well, you can't play the 20-year-old because your resume tells us that you're much older than 20. You wouldn't have done all this work. And I said, well, can I read for the 29-year-old? Because that's how old I am. And they said, no, you don't look that old. So I thought, wait a second, how am I going to do this? And so at that point in time, I really seriously considered quitting acting. Like, I thought maybe I need to cool the acting burner for a while, and I'll just be a playwright. And at that point in time, you maybe could have been a playwright. And I made myself a deal that my next audition, if I didn't get the part, I was going to quit acting for a while. And then I auditioned for Angels in America here in town, and I got the part. So that made a decision for me that I would continue to act for a while.
And it's been our good fortune ever since.
Thank you.
Angels in America being such a play, gravitas, it's part of our queer history, so important. It's hard when it comes to comparing yourself to other people's works, of course. But I do see your plays as being such high quality. Is there a role? Is there a play? Is there something that you've produced where you've thought to yourself, this has come together and this is exactly what I want? This is it. If I was to die now, this is what I want to be remembered for.
I don't know if there's one experience like that. I have many shows that I'm really proud of that I've directed or designed or produced or performed in. There are a few that I think are touchstones for me, where I think if I were to have a legacy, I would hope it would be for a certain kinds of shows. I would say for me, A lot of them are a lot of them are the work that I've done with Guys in Disguise here in town. We've talked we've talked a couple times about a play that Nick Green wrote that I performed in a solo play called Coffee Dad, Chicken Mom, and the Fabulous Buddha Boy, which is a beautiful three interlinked monologues about a family, a father, a mother, and a son. The son is sort of wrestling with his queerness, and the mom is sort of wrestling with his queerness, and she's also wrestling with the fact that the dad is wrestling with his self-identity and his middle age and looking for a purpose in life. And it's these three lost souls in a family trying to connect with each other and all being very disjointed and lost. And it's a beautiful play. So that would be one that I would be proud of. I received a Sterling Award for that, and it was very gratifying, that whole process. And of course, another show that I think I would hope would be that would come up is Darren and I have created characters called Flora and Fauna, which are two young 9 and 10-year-old girls who are starting their own group of offshoot of Girl Guides after being bullied out, called the Naturels. And we've done 2 shows with those characters, and they're wildly successful, and we've toured with that. And those are characters that seem to really touch our adult audiences because they're completely outsiders. They're struggling to connect with each other and to support each other and bond. And I think everyone really seems to that seems to really resonate with our audiences, because I think everyone has felt that way and felt like you and your best friend are the only ones that understand it, and you're not popular and you may never be popular. And you know that that's the only person you've got at that point in time. And so you cling together. And I think that's another play that I think those are plays that I think will likely be linked. I will be linked to those when I die or whatever. And Bitch Slap, because everybody goes crazy over, which was the show that we did about Joan Crawford and Betty Davis and whatever happened to Baby Jane. We did it before Ryan Murphy did Feud, but it covers the same ground.
Yeah, and Ryan Murphy stole a lot of what you and Darren created.
A lot of similarities. Yeah, there were a lot of similarities. So that was interesting.
He had to have seen the play or the script at some point, because there are some lines that make you go,
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff that it was quite shocking. I didn't actually watch it when it was first airing, and Darren would text me and go, "Oh my God, did you see the episode? The scene in the dressing room? It's almost exactly word for word what we did." And I was like, I don't think I can bear it. And then I went and watched it, and I was pleasantly surprised. I liked much of it. I felt that Susan Sarandon's vocal affectation was a bit inconsistent as Betty Davis, but I thought Jessica Lange was stellar.
Your lawyer should be in contact with their lawyers. That's all I have to say about it.
Yeah. Well, let's sue Ryan Murphy.
That'll go well. You know, there's something about your connection with Darren and everything that you've created in connection with him. How did your connection with Guys in Disguise come about?
I knew Darren. Darren, I did one of my very first shows here in town with Darren, and we got on okay, but we weren't fond of each other. I found him a bit loud and messy, and I was sort of, I'm an actor. You're a drag queen. And he was sort of like, I'm a drag queen, you're an actor. And which was funny, because eventually we did Bitch Slap, where that's kind of how they feel about each other. But I worked with him once, and that was fine. And then a few summers later, he and his producing partner at the time sent me a message saying, we're wondering if you're interested in doing a show with us. It was part of a trilogy of characters. And this particular one in the trilogy was based on Anne of Green Gables. And they said, we'd sort of like you to play this vaguely Nellie Olson kind of evil girl named Rose Thorne. And I said, and I thought about it for a while, and I wasn't fond of the idea. I wasn't sure I wanted to work with them. Um, but honestly, they made a lot of money on the first two installments of this series. And I thought, well, I'll make money. And how much time will I have to spend with them? I'll go in, I'll do the show, and I'll leave, and that'll be it. And so I went in a very sort of like, I'm just here to do my job kind of way. And what eventually happened was a wonderful summer. I had a great time. I made fabulous close friends out of that cast. Davina Stewart played my mother, and she's one of my best, closest pals. And I have such fond memories of the whole experience, and laughing and laughing and laughing. And I thought, well, there you go. Take your ego out of the way and get in. If you can't get out, get in, and you will end up having a great time. So I learned a lot. It was a lesson for me in my own stupid preconceived biases and prejudices. I had a blast. And then 2 summers later, Darren said, I have this idea about Bette Davis and Joan Crawford, and I'd like you to do it. And I said, okay. Because I thought I was being asked to play Joan Crawford. And I was like, oh, I can do that. She has big eyebrows, and, you know, and then he was like, oh, no, I want you to play Bette Davis. And I said, oh, but you do such a great Bette Davis voice. I don't think I can do that. And he was like, well, you'll learn, you'll figure it out. And I was very nervous during the process of that. And I said, I remember twice at least, I said to him, and he and Davina, who were both in it with me, I said, I don't think I'm good at this. I think maybe you should cast somebody else. And they were like, you're gonna be fine. You're gonna be great. And I do remember the first day in rehearsal, we were in my living room where I had to sort of like pull out the voice. And I thought, well, I'm just gonna go over the top and see, and they'll like, you know, and they were like, it's good. You're good. So it became that became such a joy. That show again was also a show that we toured everywhere, that everyone loved. We went to the out games and appeared with Lily Tomlin, and we toured to Orlando in the States, and we toured it, and it was a blast.
And now you on a regular write and perform with Darren. What is the writing process like with him? Do one of you come with the script and say, this is what we're going to do, or is it a collaborative team?
I'll tell you the truth. And this is for real, the truth. Like, we go, what should we write about? And we come up with ideas like, what about like space girls, or what about like nuns, or what about Venetian horrors? Like, we'll come up with like a concept, then we'll come up with a title that makes us laugh. Then we'll go and maybe talk about characters or something. Or often I structure a play. Like, I go, here's the storyline, and he goes, oh, okay, I can buy into that. I will usually write the beginning of a play, and by the time we've written maybe the first section of a play, then we do a photo shoot, which is totally wrong. That sometimes the photo shoot happens so early that we build the play around what we look like. It's really kind of ass backwards, but really fun. And then we work on structure together, and I'll say, oh, there's a scene where they have to meet and talk about this, and he goes, well, I'll do that if you'll do this later scene. So then we kind of patchwork it together. Darren is really, really funny, and I don't feel like I'm as funny as he is. So he often puts in most of the jokes, and I work on structure and plot often. And we consistently and conscientiously and consciously do what we call the sucker punch. About 75% through the script, we get the action turns. So it's funny, ha 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 ha, and then we reach a point where it twists, and we like get you in the feels. You're either sad, or you're angry, or usually sad. Like, we twist it so that you came for the funny men in dresses, and you forget that there's funny men in dresses, and you start to care about the women on stage and what they're going through. So a lot of our plays, we market them like comedies, and then they end up being dramas at the end. And they usually have some sort of social commentary about the plight of women in a hyper-masculine society, the limitations of women's involvement in their own empowerment. Or sometimes we've done shows about sort of women on women discrimination or prejudice, where women are holding other women back from moving forward. It's a lot of plays about identity and community,
Yeah.
and empowerment.
Yeah, your career definitely shows us that you gravitate towards women's stories and be able to express those stories in itself. Why is that? Is that a choice because you know you're good at it, or is it something that you knew from a long time ago that these stories meant a lot more to you?
I feel like I've always had an affinity towards women and their stories. And I think that's partially because I'm gay. So I think that I spent a lot of time playing with girls. The things that girls wanted to play at doing were things that I appreciated and understood. You pretend to be someone else, you have dolls, you dress up. There's lots of those things that were considered girl things when I was that age. I wasn't good at the boy things. My brother was great at the boy things. And I couldn't compete with my brother at the boy things. So I think there's that. So my best friends and closest friends have always been women. So I feel an empathy or a sympathy towards them. I also think that I'm an extremely emotional person who does a lot of introspective self-analysis and self-realization of things. I'm extremely emotional, and I think that women are often more in touch with their emotions than men are. And so I think that lends me an insight into women's stories. I don't want to see a story where people don't face their emotions. I don't want to live in a world like that. So I don't want to waste my time doing plays about bottled up men if they're not going to unbottle. So there's many more interesting stories about women. And there's a quote that you've quoted in our previous incarnations of this interview about actually, being an outsider.
Yeah, let me read the quote for everybody. The quote comes from an article from a few years ago, that an interview that you did with Liz Nichols, who was with the Edmonton Journal at that time. And in the article, you are quoted as saying, "I find and write the plays that speak to me. I'm not a typical man. I wasn't raised that way. I'm an outsider. I think I have an affinity to stories that tell that narrative. My sympathies are there. Toxic masculinity frightens me." And I've always held on to that quote of yours in hopes of talking to you one day because of that outsider comment where you say, "I'm an outsider." And that's always surprised me because looking at you on the stage, behind the scenes, I see Trevor Schmidt as being a very, very large part of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada's theater scene. And so I think to myself, how can you be an outsider? And yet,
there has been in community in the theater community in North America, just as in everywhere else, there's always been what has been perceived as an old boys club, white straight dudes. And I've never really fit in with them. Even when I became an artistic director, I'm white, I'm male, and now I'm middle-aged. And those are seen as a lot of really negative things right now to be in my industry. But what I think a lot of the young people that are upset and want to get rid of us older white males, what I don't think they see in my career and the career of some other people is that the gay actually negated all of the white straight male. I never got into that club. However, when I did become an artistic director, and even before that, when I was still working with my collective, my group of friends, I felt that I was fortunate to be given this platform as an artistic director. And so, therefore, I wanted to use my platform to advance the work of women in that were being underserved in our community and on our stages. And that has become a real niche sort of identity for Northern Light Theater, where I'm the artistic director now. Like it has become an unspoken mandate of the company that we primarily do women's work. And in fact, a number of seasons have only had women on stage in our shows. And we're working to have more women working on our production teams backstage as well. I just want to offer more opportunities that even out the playing field a bit, because for so long everything has been dominated by men, and particularly young men, and particularly young white men.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to find work for women that are older, young emerging artists, women that are budding designers that don't have a lot of experience yet. I'm trying to offer opportunities so that other people will see them and they can move on to have a successful career.
Yeah. Let's talk about Northern Light Theater and
Sure.
a group of plays that will be released this month,
Oh
as
yeah.
well as coming into the future. All four of the plays being offered are cast with mature women, with
Mm-hmm.
roles that actually have meaning to it, uh, where the women have the ebb and flow and real story arcs and real acting involved. Please tell us more about a couple of the plays that will be premiering this month and as well as into the future.
Sure. This season we titled Women of a Certain Age, and we really wanted to focus on women, particularly 50 and up. Um, we've cast, there's one woman that's under that we've ended up casting, but I lost our first show of the season. It was supposed to be a quite large show, but because of COVID we had to cancel it. But I was quite excited about it because it was originally a play about 5 sex workers in the 80s, just as Reagan was being uh, inducted as the president, and they're all in their 70s or 80s. And I was really excited about that show, and I was sad to see it go. So hopefully there'll be a time for that later. We just finished filming Tennessee Williams' play called Something Unspoken, which is about 2 Southern belles in the southern states in New Orleans and no, in Louisiana, and there's some power dynamics between the two of them and this unspoken tension, which a modern audience will recognize as like subverted lesbianism. And so that's an interesting little play. And we've cast a Black actress in it, which adds race into the idea of all the other things that are keeping this relationship from happening because it's such an uneven balance of power, money, race, that kind of thing. So I'm quite excited about it coming out. We're just in the midst of negotiating the digital rights for that to appear. And I'm in rehearsal right now for a show called The Ugly Duchess by a woman out of Victoria named Janet Munsell, which is about a historical figure, a woman named Margaret of Maltosh. She was in the mountainous regions of Tyrol, which is between a couple different countries. It's a very advantageous tract of land. Uh, and she was considered quite homely or ugly. And it caused problems for her. Pretty women get treated better. And so she struggles with, why can't people see beyond my looks? I'm trying to be a benevolent leader. The plague comes and everyone says the ugly woman brought the plague to us. And she has to sort of navigate this beautiful soul on the inside with how she is perceived on the outside. It's a beautifully written poetic piece, and I'm looking forward to filming that in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and when will we be able to see that? And how and
Oh,
where can we go and get tickets for that?
that you'll be able to access all that information as soon as we know it. We're having dates keep changing because of COVID, so we haven't really announced them yet. But that'll be at northernlighttheater.com. They'll have all the information, and we'll be doing a rollout of advertising for those shows when it's appropriate and responsible.
Perfect.
But I'm not fond of the filming. I'll just tell you now. I don't like filming. It's like twice as much work. It's not really live theater. It's very hard to strike a balance between we're doing a stage show and we're doing a movie, and that when you're in between, I think it makes an audience uncomfortable, because if it's a period show, they want to see the bells and whistles and the running water and the period teapot, and that's just too much to do.
Yeah.
So it's hard.
Yeah, there's a heartbeat that goes on the stage, and it plays very different when it is being filmed. So I can definitely understand the struggles with that.
Sorry, as a designer at Northern Light, I often want to give people the minimum so that they know where we are. So if it's a living room, sometimes it's just a couch and a carpet and a lamp, and people fill in the rest with their imagination. An audience is actually required to participate and engage in the project in order to flesh out the world. And that's what makes theater magic, I think, is that people have to involve themselves. But once you start filming that, if I can't see the carpet and I can only see half of the couch and the lamp is out of the shot, you're standing in front of a blank wall, and that's not interesting. And the audience doesn't want to do the work. In film, they don't want to do the work. Film and television, you do the work for them. You do all the work for them. And that's what I think makes film and movies much more passive. And I want to demand an active participation of an audience.
Yeah, with COVID and the pandemic taking place, it of course has changed our theater going experience, in that for the most part, we're not able to go, although you've been able to have shows during this time because it just has worked out perfectly that way.
Yeah. Oh, just sheer luck that we like dodged all the lockdowns and all the like regulation. Like it just, honestly, we just kept shaking our head going, are you kidding me? Like we closed the day before they like stepped back to another earlier step. Like it was insane.
Yeah. So does theater change when we are able to go back? Will theater change from now that you are going to have to plan the stage version as well as film it as well, because audiences have now changed what they like and what they're willing to do? Or do we go back to what it was before?
I don't think audiences really like what we're doing now. I don't think this is how they want it to be. I think audiences that like theater want to go see theater in a theater. I think that although there are lots of advances and people have figured out ways to produce content, I don't believe that what we're doing is theater. We're creating online content now, and that's not the same thing. I don't want to continue creating online content. It's not where my heart lies, and I think that I don't have the sort of control over it that I would like to have. And I think a lot of stage actors don't enjoy what they're doing now because, again, it's not every night. It's not developing. It's you shoot it once, someone else cuts your performance together, and you walk away. So I think that, and it's a very unpopular thing for me to say, but I think that we will return to theater. There may be some changes made in terms of diversity and those kinds of good changes that can be made in our society. But I think that theater has lasted for thousands and thousands of years. And I don't think we're ever not going to be a person standing in front of a group of people telling a story.
Yeah. What would be something that people would be surprised to learn about you?
Oh, probably that I'm hypersensitive. Like my good friends laugh all the time because they say, you can dish it out, but you can't take it. And I can't. I love to tease people. There's nothing I enjoy more than making my friends laugh. Like, just if I can crack Darren up on stage, I've had an awesome show. If I can make someone in my friends group blush, I love it. I love to tease people, and I often tell people when I work with them for the first time, if I tease you, it means I like you. So, and if I go too far and you say, you need to say, that's a little too far. You're hurting my feelings right now. And then I say, it doesn't mean I'm going to stop, but it'll make you feel better. So I love to tease people. I just love to, but I cannot in any way be teased. Like it's really, it's hard for me. I get hypersensitive and really upset. So that's probably something that would surprise people. My feelings get hurt. I think people have seen me perform a lot of abrasive, loud, aggressive, confrontational characters on stage, and I think they think that's who I am. Mm. I told you the story about how I went to should I say the name? I went to a social gathering of older gay men that were professionals, and it was one of those sort of drop-in things where it's like every Thursday night we're meeting at this place this week. And so I went to one of those once, and I walked in the door and someone went, "Oh my God, it's Trevor Schmidt." And everybody turned and looked at me, and I was a little bit embarrassed already. So everyone's looking at me, and the gentleman that was hosting that week rushed up to me with a couple other people and said, "Oh my God, we're so glad you're here. This is so exciting. So which Trevor Schmidt are we going to get?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, which Trevor Schmidt are we going to get tonight? The nice one, the fun one, or are we going to get the really bitchy Trevor Schmidt?" And I said, "Well, you're probably going to get both, but I can guarantee which one you're going to get first." And I think that it's the idea that I am who they've seen on stage and who they like. There's that big, oversized, kind of over dramatic, bitchy character, and I think a lot of people have made the assumption that that must be who I am. And while I can get there for you if that's where we're going, it's not my go-to. It's not, and it's certainly not where I want to start. Mm-hmm. And I find that happens a lot with the queer community. I find I'm quite uncomfortable because I feel like I often make the joke, the gays aren't fond of me. And I feel like that's kind of the case.
Yeah, in which I can understand with what you're saying. I can understand that. But at the same time, it doesn't click in my head because I've gotten to know you through our conversations and through being a Facebook friend for a long time. And I don't see that stage or that character. I see this very humble and quiet and personable person. And so I'm shocked that others don't see that as well. And which is,
well, I'm a little bit shy in person. Yeah. Until I know you or until you approach me. I'm not super great about approaching other people. I've always had, there's a reason that I've done enough therapy and enough self-reflection to know that I'm always constantly looking for my father's approval because my brother got it. I'm always second. So I have very consciously always, the minute there's competition, I don't care. I drop out. I'm removed from competition because I'm afraid I won't win. And it's the same thing with the queer community. It's like I'm so afraid that I will be rejected that I don't bother putting myself out there. The minute someone does approach me, they go, "Oh my God, you're so nice. I wasn't really I didn't expect this." And that's because again, like you said, lots of people have said to me, "I expected you to be sort of stuck up," or "You're so intimidating." And I remember meeting these four gentlemen came up to me on Fringe Site one year and they were like, "We love your work." And I was like, "Oh my God, thank you." And they said, "Yeah, we've never talked to you before. We've followed you for like 10 years. And I said, "So why did you never talk to me?" And they said, "Oh, well, we just assumed that you were that you had a boyfriend and that you were always you were never out anywhere. We just figured you were always at home with your partner." And I said, "I don't have one. I'm sitting at home by myself," but that's interesting to hear.
Yeah.
So I think people have a perception that you have some sort of fantastically fulfilling life at home. And that's why you're not doing those things. And I just feel weird. I feel awkward. I'm not comfortable on a website or a dating site or an app or anything like that. Like I just feel like because I represent the company and because so often I'm linked to my company, I feel like it's maybe sort of inappropriate or like I don't know.
Yeah. All the above. Yeah. All the above. What,
Yeah.
whether it's your personal life or your career, where are you going once we're out of this pandemic and we're able to be out and about and see each other and you're going to be able to hear the applause from the audience? Where do you see yourself within the next few years with your career?
Ugh. Um, I'd like to be still doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, I hope so.
Um, I'm a bit at a crossroads right now. Like I've been at my job for quite some time, and I know there are a lot of people, younger people in the community that feel that um, people should be giving up their positions after a certain period of time. And I think that that's not carefully thought out. I think that's a very young opinion about things without a lot of insight into it. Um, but I also know that Darren isn't very interested in performing any longer. He has gotten tired of that and um, doesn't want to wear heels and doesn't want to wear eyelashes. And he's like, I think I'm done. I think I'm hanging up my drag. And so I don't know whether he will want the three of us that are still involved to continue or not. So that's sort of up in the air. And we've lost two fringes now.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not sure if there's even I feel very confident that our audience base will come back, but that's up in the air. Honestly, like I'm aiming so low right now. Like for me, um, I would really like to suntan in one of my like 40 speedos. Like that's sort of my goal for like that's it. That's my next goal is that I want to get a really good tan in a really small speedo. That's it. I'm not seeing beyond that. I sort of know like we know what we're planning for Northern Light next season, but I'm so it's so much just what's right in front of me that I can't even see 5 years from now. And also 5 years from now, I'm going to be like quite old. So I'm not sure. Like I've got a birthday coming up in a couple of weeks and I'm trying not to look too far into the future. Like often my friends go, oh, you're young and you dress. And I'm like, listen, kids, like I say to my friends, like, girl, I am a certain age now in the gay world. That's dead. I feel like I remember at 30 being told I could never date you. You're really old. And also I think you're completely unattractive. That was the first guy I ever asked out at 30 years old. And so I'm a lot older than 30 now. And it just feels like, oh, yeah, I'm not looking ahead
Yeah.
so
There's the
much.
joke within the community that when you turn 30, that's considered gay death. And it's just downhill from there, so to speak.
Yeah. Oh,
But
yeah.
we know that's not the truth. We do know, but there's times when it kicks us in the butt.
Like it.
So I just want to say that if anyone wants to help Trevor with this, with his need and desire for the Speedos, and if you have a rooftop for him,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
definitely reach out to Tales of the LGBTQ plus on any of our platforms, and we will private detective and make sure that it works out. And who knows, we may ship Trevor Schmidt to your household to make his 2021 dream come true.
Absolutely. I'm in. That's right.
So
I'll bring the suntan lotion.
I love it. You know, there's always that sucker punch. And I feel that we've had a little bit of a sucker punch here in our conversation because we've talked about your career and we've talked about accolades. And then there's that sucker punch where we recognize you, Trevor, as a real person with emotions and feelings and connections. And so I feel like in our interview and every conversation with each other, we've had this arc where it's been building, and then there's that realization of, hey, there's something going on behind the scenes as well, and that human aspect comes in.
Well, I think I'm very open. I'm very open about everything. I don't have secrets. I've always been very transparent, and I think that I think a lot of people that I've been with in the past, and friends and partners and things, I think a lot of people are very attracted to me for my strength, like the strength of my character and the strength of my opinions and the strength of my convictions in what I believe. But I think they get rattled when they see my weakness.
Mm.
And it becomes a bit of a challenge when you say, I can't be strong all the time. I can't be that image that you were attracted to all the time. And sometimes I'm going to need you to be the strong one. I'm going to need you to support me. I feel like I've spent an inordinate amount of my life taking care of myself, having instructors and family and parents say, we don't worry about you. I'd love someone to worry about me. It would be really nice. And I feel like I spend a lot of time um, fighting for myself. And we talked about this the other day too. It's like RuPaul says, how if you don't love yourself, how's anybody else going to love you? That bullshit. And I'm like, that's a really lovely thought. But you know what, RuPaul? Sometimes it's easier if someone else starts first.
Yep. Yep. Amen to that.
Like, I love myself. But sometimes you need someone else to start loving you first.
Amen. Amen. I'm always dumbfounded at times by doing this podcast because I get to meet and talk to people, and there's no expectations when you go into these conversations. You know, I just want to learn more, and just how transparent everyone has been and sharing their truth. And there's something about us being able to share our truth that connects us. And I'm so appreciative of the conversation that we've had recorded here today, but as well as the other conversations that we've had before, you know, and which makes this type of conversation difficult because we've talked a lot about emotions and feelings and where we want to be. Because myself, I'm turning 46 this year, and fantastic relationship I'm in, but I understand those struggles. And as being a teacher, provider, it's tough. It's tough. And I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
When
I'm turning 50.
You're young.
I'm turning 52 this year. So yeah, well, young, yeah.
I know. But you're getting to daddy stage where, you know, there's people.
I called daddy when I was 30 though. Like, it's like, yeah, but you know what? Again, you can't be a daddy without a child, or you know what I mean? Not a child, but you know what I mean? It's like, daddy, I often say to my friends, like, can you be gay by yourself? Like, it's a little bit like if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it, did it even fall? I feel kind of the same thing about, like, I go, can I be gay all by myself? COVID has me worried. What if the last time I had sex is actually the last time I had sex ever?
Yeah. It makes us ponder those things that we never would have thought of before. That's
a sobering thought.
Yeah. Oi, there's people at home now who are listening to this conversation going, fuck.
And it was interesting. Like, I think we talked about this before. It was like, I think it was Finland that said, like, oh, we're about to head back into lockdown. Single people should locate a fuck buddy. And I was like, wow, that was blunt, Finland. Good for you. But like, I don't know how people would do that. Like, I mean, I guess people did. I didn't.
There could be, we learn things in the future. Heck.
Yeah. And I've lived alone. Like, I live alone. So I've been alone for a year now. I haven't seen any of my family members. I can't Zoom with my mother because she's in a home, and that's beyond her right now. And like it's been quite a lonely experience in many ways. I'm very fortunate to have been working the whole time, so I got limited contact with people along the way.
Mhm.
But it's been a lot of time by myself, which is generally a really bad thing for me. so so I've been in my own head, and that's been hard. In some ways it's been rewarding. I've realized there are certain relationships that I don't need to reconnect with people in the same way again. And I have strengthened relationships with some of my friends, but they're mostly far away. I don't have a whole lot of close relationships here in town. And that makes it a little bit difficult. Again, with the whole self-reliant, take care of yourself, you can do it, and it wears on you.
It does, absolutely. Everyone expects you for one role, and as you mentioned earlier, there's times where you need it in return.
Yeah. And they go, I remember once someone saying, I don't like this side of you. Like, I don't like this. I don't like when you're unhappy. Like, I don't like that. Stop doing that. And it was like, well, why don't I get my downtime like everybody else?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. You can't be on stage 24/7 pleasing everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's makes it difficult. What would you say to that child growing up, that male child, kind of that outsider? If you had an opportunity to talk to that kid, what would you say to him?
Oh, you asked me this the other day, and I responded like immediately and genuinely, and now I can't think of what I said. And
Think about it in this moment. Yeah.
I think my brain goes to find the adults that will help you. find the help. I think I've always felt like an outsider, and I think I would probably say you will find the people you're meant to find. But I would also probably want to be realistic because I'm like that. And I may say, stop trying to find your happiness by being accepted by other people. Um, I wrote a line in a play that was done this fall, and the actress said, "Oh, this is the saddest line I've ever read." And I said, "But I think that may be how I think." The character is asked, "Have you ever been in love?" And she says, "Some people don't deserve to be loved. That's what I've been told." And I think in my most brutally honest moments, that might be what I say that might be what I would say.
Hmm.
Some people don't deserve to be loved, and you'll still make it through. Like, it gets better, but sometimes it doesn't.
I get what you're putting down. I do. I I think I've held those feelings before, and I think it's partly because of the time frame that you and I both grew up in. We didn't have
Yeah.
those people to mentor us. We didn't have those images on television where we could see that strong relationship, that love. Um, just as a personal note, when I married my husband a couple of years ago, um, didn't have vows planned as far as what I was going to say, but at that moment, I said out loud that I never dared myself to be loved. I could never believe that it would happen. And on the few occasions that I would allow myself to, I really had to squint in the distance to see a shape or a frame. And it was at that moment when I married my husband, Jared, when it became clear that, oh, that's the shape I've seen all along.
Yeah.
And it was only at that moment where I realized that I was able to be loved. I knew that I always had love for others, but I never accepted it for myself.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
That's profound. Yeah.
And
that's profound.
It's still hard today at those times, because I'm jealous of the youth in many ways, to get to see the mentors. And you and I both grew up formative years where, with the 80s, with HIV and AIDS, those mentors that would have been in our lives as being positive male role models, they were dying, they were struggling, and there was that case there, and people were flailing around. And so I relate with what you've just said, and I don't see it as being sad. I see it as just being what we've had to go through with our experiences with what we were given. And we're just trying to still make sense of it. And we're still unpacking that baggage. And it doesn't mean that
it's interesting too.
We just haven't unpacked that part yet.
I feel like I found my soulmate. I feel like I was loved for a while, and then that ended abruptly and suddenly and surprisingly. And my best friend has always said to me, "You are one of the bravest people I know. You absolutely just run into what frightens you." And I have felt since that breakup, I am definitely not the brave person that I used to be.
Mm-hmm. Is that a bad thing?
And that makes me sad.
Okay.
Yeah, it is, because I don't think I'm not sure that I'm not sure that I would be willing to risk accepting love from someone right now, because I don't know that I would believe it. It would take a lot. It might take a while for me. And that makes me sad. That makes me sad that I'm not as open and as willing as I used to be. I feel like I have been damaged finally late in life. I got the heartbroken damage, and I now understand why people go, "It's too late for me. I'm too set in my ways. I'll never have anyone living with me. I'll never have a partner." Like I didn't used to understand that. I used to always be like, what is wrong with that person? It is not too late. It is not beyond capacity to have that happen. And now I kind of go, oh, I sort of get that. I don't know that I can wade into those waters right now again. I like, and on a more superficial level, I'm like, Jesus Christ, I don't know if I can take the time to memorize somebody else's family tree. I don't know if I can learn their freaking food allergy bullshit. Like, I don't know. Is it worth it? I got a limited brain capacity. I have to change my password every 3 months. That's enough.
Yeah, we got to figure out this microphone thing.
Yeah, exactly. I've had you chasing me across like social media platforms all day. Follow me, Casey.
We found you though, and that's the psychological part here, and for me, it's clear that you've created these fantastic characters, these roles, and I see now clearly bits and pieces of you in all of those characters. And
yeah, absolutely.
Would it be fair of me to say that you've mastered all of these roles, all of these characters, but yet perhaps the character you haven't been able to figure out in the role yet would be your own self? Would that be fair?
No, I think I know who I am. I feel like I don't have a scene partner yet. That's what it is. I know who I am. It's like, who's willing to stand on stage with me? I feel like I'm a lot. I'm a lot of person. Like my friends say, you have so much love to give to someone, but no one will let me give it to them. And that's the problem for me. It's like whoever signs up, like, oh man, you are in for a lot. You like, hold on, because you're getting it all. But people, I believe that everyone, particularly when we talk about romantic relationships or love, but in all relationships, I think everyone operates out of a place of fear. I think everyone is afraid. And so I have to keep nudging myself to not be afraid and to run towards the fear, which is how I've always approached everything in life if I can. And I have to keep doing that. But it feels like at this point it's hard because life beats that out of you, man. Life really does. I have this great friend who used to work with me who's incredibly cheerful all the time, and she's just a ray of light. I just adore her. And she's always like, amazing, that's great, yes, yes, yes. And she everything is like happy faces and exclamation marks and emojis, and she's like, just ugh. And I said, oh, you're so positive. And but you know what? And I said, you know what's going to happen though? And she says, life is going to fuck that out of me. And I said, exactly. Because that's what I always used to say to her. Oh, you're so positive, but life is going to fuck that out of you eventually. And I feel like it's hard. We all get it fucked out of us eventually.
Yeah.
The joy.
Yeah. The one thing though I know is that you've been able to sit down and write these amazing plays. And I feel that despite everything that's been said right now, that you have the ability, and despite what you also said, I also see the desire to write that love story, because that love story is within you. It's clear to me. And it just pen and paper for you, pen and paper. And also the good thing is,
well,
people who are listening, go ahead.
I'm really fortunate to be able to play those stories, because those stories, like when you see me cry on stage, I'm crying. Like that's real. And I'm very fortunate to be able to play those stories and to put my real emotional stuff into the world. I feel I have an outlet for that in my personal life right now. And that's hard. It would be nice to come home to someone during COVID and have someone here that that you can spend time with, and that is comforting to you, and that you can unpack your day with. That would be a real pleasure. But I mean, again, it's just, we're all sitting in the same hell. We're just in different seats.
Exactly. And I'm just going to just make sure that you keep the ink in that pen and make sure you continue writing that story, the good part of the story. Just make sure you do that.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Sorry, this third turn, this third time it took like a dark turn.
It's a sucker punch.
Like we were way happier, but this third attempt at this interview was like, I think I should die. Like you caught me at the end of a tough week here. I was much more positive the other times. So.
We're speaking.
I'm a Gemini.
Yeah, and we're speaking the truth, and we're putting ourselves out there at every moment. And a podcast like this, someone's going to listen, and there's going to be some who are going to judge and go, oh, tisk tisk. But I would imagine that the vast majority of people are going to listen and go, I understand. I know what you're saying, and I understand where you're coming from.
Well, if nothing else, I know that people constantly say to me, oh my God, you say what everyone else is thinking. Yeah. So that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. And the entire, I wanted you to be on this podcast so I get to know you more. Of course, to promote the upcoming plays that are going to be taking place with Northern Light Theater, but also to have a conversation and get to know you, not Buddha Boy and not the mom or Betty Davis, but to understand Trevor Schmidt more. And I, again, thank you for your transparency.
Oh, you'll always get the truth from me.
I love it. I love it. We're going to wrap up, and we're going to hope that it records this time. That's what we're going to hope. Because if we're going to go through the emotional part the fourth time, we're just going to start off just be.
Oh my God, I'll start off with slashing my wrists at the beginning, right?
We'll just start there. We'll do the end scene first. Well, okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the conversation.
Thank you.
On behalf of Trevor, I just want to thank everyone for taking the time to listen to our conversation today. Thank you. I also have to say, please subscribe wherever you're at. My friend Dwayne always is on my case to make sure that I do that. So on behalf of everyone, thank you for listening. Try to be good and always text when you get home. Until next time.